The states just find a way to spend that money, find new priorities, and establish, of course, the worst thing is new higher budget baselines from which they will springboard into the future. So you can't take that money away anymore, or else you're cutting needed services to your constituents. Not going to happen. So once states try to get a foothold into taxing internet purchases, they're just never going to let that go. And this kind of trend needs to be resisted at every turn. And taxing internet sales is also really a collection nightmare. I mean, just the iTunes tax or the Amazon tax for a moment. There are 7,400 different tax districts across the United States, according to the Tax Foundation. Even a corporate giant like Apple would have a heck of a time trying to keep all that straight, trying to track where their customers are, where the purchase was made. And that's to say nothing of smaller online businesses or entrepreneurs looking even to get into some kind of online retail. Of course, the biggest problem with collecting these taxes involves the concept of nexus, or establishing a legitimate jurisdiction for a tax, because the internet really isn't a place, of course, in the real world. You know, it's in the ether, it's the cloud, it's everywhere, and in many ways it's nowhere at all. So which government, for instance, is a legitimate recipient of a sales tax purchase made from a resident in California, visiting a coffee shop here in Columbus, using a Wi-Fi connection at that coffee shop from AT&T, ordering an e-book for my Kindle reader from Amazon, which is based in Washington State, and then the purchase is routed through multiple servers in Pennsylvania, Nebraska, and Missouri. I mean, how do you figure all that out? Who gets that money? Because I guarantee every state's going to want a piece of that, and that just really, it becomes a nightmare, not just for the companies, but also for the governments themselves. And that's quite a bit more complicated than those eager to impose these kind of taxes on the internet will usually admit. And this tax also is probably, at least for now, unconstitutional. Internet sales taxes are constitutionally suspect because of the Supreme Court's 1992 interpretation of the Commerce Clause in Quill versus North Dakota. The court upheld the principle in that case that New York, of all places, has no right to, or not New York, but applying it to the New York iTunes tax, they have no right to force a company with no physical presence in that state to collect its sales taxes. So it was on the basis of that decision that Amazon and Overstock also joined this suit, sued New York State and said, you can't make us collect taxes for you because we don't even have an office in your state. Just because our customers live in Schenectady or Queens, that's no reason for us to collect that and send it to you. The trouble is, just a couple weeks ago, New York Supreme Court judge upheld the Amazon tax, saying, amazingly to my mind, that despite the Quill precedent, that there's no basis for which Amazon could prevail in this case. And indeed, the judge added the case was tossed out because of the failure by Amazon to even state a cause of action, which seems strange to me, but I'm not a lawyer. But Amazon appears to be giving up on this case, while Overstock happily says it's prepared to continue to appeal the case all the way to the Supreme Court. And just an idea of the economic impact, or the bad economic impact of these kind of taxes and these kind of attempts by states to collect taxes from internet commerce companies, is that Overstock actually had 3,400 affiliates in New York, and when the Amazon tax passed last year, they just cut all ties with those affiliates and took off out of town. Now, how does that help New York? It doesn't, obviously. And if more states do this, you're going to see more people, more companies fleeing these states that have these kind of taxes that are really punitive. So, and lastly, let's see my time. I'm doing good. So, actually, to kind of get around this, to talk about one more thing, and many of you, I'm sure, are probably familiar with this, is the Streamline Sales Tax Project, which is a pact among 21 states that promise to streamline and standardize their sales tax structures in exchange for permission from Congress to collect internet taxes. 15 states are full members of this cartel, including every neighbor of the state of Ohio, save Pennsylvania. And Ohio, I understand, has its toe in the water as an associate member, and has indicated that it will go full on into this cartel if and when Congress gives the green light to start collecting internet sales taxes, because basically to get around the Commerce Clause, unless the Supreme Court eventually just throws Quill out, Congress, in fact, in that decision, the Supreme Court said Congress can institute laws to allow this sort of thing, but they wouldn't allow it by they wouldn't legislate basically from the bench and allow it. But it seems to me that we fought a war on the concept of no taxation without representation, and Amazon, for instance, doesn't have any representation in New York State, yet they're forced to their tax and forced to collect taxes there. Just the idea that New York residents who use Amazon.com, they're not using any infrastructure. So why should? That's one of the beauties of online commerce, is that you're not contributing to global warming by driving your car around. You're not helping make a pothole bigger by getting out and driving around. You're sitting in your pajamas in your bedroom and ordering books and music and movies and games. So it just seems very counterintuitive from an economic sense, from a practical sense, and really from a constitutional sense to charge sales taxes on the Internet. And of course, lastly, it should almost go without saying at this point, but imposing an Internet sales tax would harm the economy at really the worst possible time right now. The Internet is really a wonder of the age in economic sense. I mean, it's been really, for the most part, a kind of a huge tax-free enterprise zone, and it has allowed, and that freedom has allowed innovation in so many ways, in not just creative ways to bring faster speeds to everybody, but also in ways of commerce. Whole businesses generated because there's this freedom, and there's the lack of fear, really, and a burden that is going to be on me that I will get a payoff if I innovate in the way the Internet is used, and start tacking taxes on that, and that innovation is really going to dry up and, of course, have a larger drag on the economy. So keeping the Internet as tax-free as it can be, and as it is well enough right now, is really a way to go. And just to touch quickly here on my second subject, which is municipal Wi-Fi schemes, I would be remiss as a Heartland research fellow if I didn't mention Milton Friedman, who taught us many truths about the relationship among government, economics, and human nature. And one of the great mistakes, he said, is to judge a program by its intentions. Municipal governments across the country intend to provide free, fast, wireless Internet services for their constituents. In fact, a report from just 2 years ago predicted that $3 billion would be spent by governments to build and operate municipal wireless Internet services. And that was before the stimulus bill that President Obama is signing, maybe at this very moment, but he is going to sign it today, which dedicates $9 billion to expanding broadband across the country. And that $9 billion includes $2 billion to tell everybody that they're spending $7 billion on broadband.